my name is Delaney Schlesinger-Devlin. I'm also a fourth year. My pronouns are they, them, and for my third co-op, I went to Camphill Copic, just like Zoe.
Hi, my name is Zoe Johnson. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a junior, and I co-opt at Camphill.
What is Camphill?
Camphill is an intentional community for people with special needs.
Okay, perfect. And so what did you do here at Camphill?
Well, I was officially a baker was my job in the community, but I also worked full-time in the house, russet house.
Okay, so what do you mean you were a baker? Did you just show up and start baking things?
Well, I did actually. I showed up and they placed me based on my interest, and so I've already done baking previously in also Waldorf-ish themed spaces. So I actually knew the majority of the recipes that they were using, challah bread, all of the buns they were making. I have previous knowledge making all of those, so it was a bit easier of a transition into just going somewhere and immediately baking in a whole functioning kitchen like that. But yeah, Frank, the head baker, just told me what tasks were mine and said, do it. So yeah, I did just start baking.
Did you enjoy baking?
I actually really enjoyed baking. Baking was my favorite part of working there, although it had nothing to do with any of my academics. It was really great. I got to hone a lot of my skills, and I'm terrible with measurements, so that was really cool. Although they all looked at me like I was insane when I couldn't measure basic things, which is just really great.
And what did you say your afternoon thing was?
My afternoon thing was actually the bakery. I spent all of my time in the bakery, but then during the breaks and during lunches and such, I was in the house with Virginia and the other people who lived there.
So can you maybe give me what did a typical day in your life at Camphill look like?
Yeah, so I didn't work in the house. I worked in the bakery. So I still had to get up when everyone else did, super early. Around, I think it was 6 or something. I don't even remember. It was early, and Russet was earlier than some of the other houses too, which was funny. But we would get up and we would wake everyone up, and I'd help make breakfast, and then we would go to work after we ate. Well, we did things like prayer and circle and morning circle and such, and touching in base with all of the people. But yeah, it was pretty much get up, eat, go to work.
And so after you finish your morning shift of work, what did you do?
Well, after I was finished in the afternoons, I sometimes would stay a little bit longer after everyone left to help Frank do certain things like proofing certain breads and such that needed more attention and couldn't be done while trying to supervise all of the villagers. So I would sometimes stay a little bit longer, and then I would go to lunch at the house. And then there was also swapping houses, so sometimes I would go to lunch at other houses and such.
Nice. And so you just said villagers. So who are villagers?
Villagers are the people who primarily inhabit the community, the people there with special needs, and they all are participating aspects and components of the community. They put in just as much work as anyone else.
So my daily routine was a little bit different because in the mornings I cooked in my house.
Yeah.
So I would stay in my house and I would cook lunch for everyone. And I got to choose. I don't know about you, but I always got to choose what I cooked for my house. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot more sometimes I was I really want spaghetti and meatballs. So I'd make spaghetti and lentil balls. Or sometimes people would be oh, I really want macaroni and cheese. So I'd make the macaroni and cheese. So I would spend the mornings cooking and then also cleaning a little bit of the house, and then we would have lunch, and then in the afternoons I actually worked in Turtle Tree Seed, which is the seed sovereignty workshop, where sometimes we'd be I really liked the days when we were outside gardening because I was there in the fall to the winter. But then when it was too cold or rainy or wet, then we would be inside literally sorting seeds and cleaning them by hand. So I liked doing that. Was kind of my afternoon. And then in the evenings we had bread and spreads.
Yeah, always bread and spreads. That's what we had too every dinner. Lunches were probably the most like out there in regards in my house in regards to like what was different. I think like, but yeah, no, breads and spreads really typical. I think dinner for everyone. And
maybe we should say what bread and spread is. So bread and spread. So you said you worked at the bakery, and like literally the bakery at Camphill makes like the best bread that you've ever tasted, known to man. Like I still dream of it. And then spreads would just be like our house. We did a lot of like hummus. We did like peanut butter, jelly, honey, butter. I'm trying to think of what else.
We did things like we would make dips often.
We also did something called forever soup, where we in our house, so we would have bread and spreads, but sometimes we just like weren't feeling the spreads because I was also there like in the winter, so it was cold, so we wanted like a little bit more like soupy things. So we would try to find whatever leftovers we had, and we would literally just make soup with them, like put water and like put like veggie stock in it and stuff. And so, but we called it forever soup because we would usually have it for like a few days at a time, and we would just like leave it on the stove. Oh, nice. And it would just like, we would just keep adding to it. And so like you eventually finished it, but like it changed a little bit every day. And so we called it forever soup.
That's awesome. We did a lot of yogurt. So at dinner times we would have yogurt as well. Cause there was just always yogurt being made almost like every night, cause our house ate a lot of yogurt. So which I got to learn how to make yogurt.
Same here. I was like, because I was in charge of cooking in the morning, so I was also in charge of like boiling the milk for yogurt, and I was like, I think I burned my first thing of yogurt.
I remember making the first batch with Virginia, and it went everywhere. Actually, it kind of like bubbled out of the pot.
Yeah. And I think that was like the benefit of Camphill is just like a lot of like these resiliency like skills. So like I also learned like how to do like wax dipping for leaves, and like the like seed sovereignty stuff about like how to preserve seeds, like both on like kind of a industrial level almost, but also like as like an individual person, because then we would take stuff home and we would like save it. And so I think that was kind of the benefit of Camphill, is just coming back into these skills that are like very Waldorf inspired, but also just like much more like
they're
holistic.
They're like lost skills, lost art forms, like things that like now like no one's making their yogurt, like they can go to the store. It's like time proficiency, I feel like, has a lot to do with it. And like at Camphill there is so much time, so it's like instead of going to the store and buying yogurt, it's actually way more holistic and beneficial to the community to actually just like spend the 45 minutes to prep it and then, you know, cook it. And I thought that was really interesting, was seeing how like we had more time to do these things. So I thought that was really interesting. Like the amount of time we had to actually like make things at Camphill was really, that was my favorite part, was getting to like get back into these skills like you're saying, and like, I don't know, learn them and hone them and actually use them and have the time to do it. So it's not like you're racing the clock and you're trying to force this experience and like this like way of being like, I don't know, sustainable, but actually enjoying it and learning from it, because it's how you get your yogurt or it's how you get your milk. Like you have to go get it, you have to make it, rather than like just going and buying it. Was really nice. That's like really feels like mirrored to like my experience just like in the world. So that was really cool, getting to go there and like do it full time. And I took back a lot of skills to my parents, which was really fun to be able to like share like that. But yeah.
So like this was my only co-op really that I was just like, I felt relaxed and like learning skills, and like I really enjoyed. So like at Camphill, before meals, when you light the candle to like signal the start of a meal, and then at the end of the meal where you blow it out and you stay silent until the smoke goes. That's something I do with my friends now, just kind of as like, it's just these things, because you have the time to kind of like take the moments and to like take a minute and breathe. And I really appreciate that, not only for like the skills I learned, but also for like that point in my life that I just needed a little bit of like rest. And like still learning things, because that was also the co-op I think I figured out I wanted to do social work.
Oh wow.
Because I think the benefit of Camphill is like, you are living with you're living, working, eating, like you're living with these people, like everyone, your house, you are a house. I don't know how, you literally are a house.
Literally, yeah.
And so like you like have to share a shower. Like I had to share a shower with like a few of the villagers, and like having to be like, okay, she's in the shower now, then I have to wait. And so and just kind of like the lack of like institutional like barriers that are at like
Yeah.
state run or like general like institutions?
Personally, I was so stressed because I felt like I had missed my first co-op, so I felt like I needed everything to be perfect, and I felt a little bit of lack of support in regards to like the planning of it. And so when I got there, and I hadn't really heard much from like the house parents or really anyone after I got accepted, it was just like, come. And
it was literally the same thing, because I remember, because I went with Asher and
Yeah.
Ike, who are other 2 students, and I remember like texting each other and being like, have you heard? Have they said anything? And they were just like, no. Like, I think we got a call like maybe a week before, and that was to schedule our background checks.
Yeah.
And that was like it. And we were just like, this is gonna be weird, but we're gonna do it because why not?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly how me and Chris Thompson felt. We were just like, yeah, we might as well just go. It's gonna be fun. Like, the trip up there will be nice. And it was great. After I ended up being able to articulate what I needed, like, it was like better. But it was also at the height of COVID, and I was so concerned about like getting people sick and the community. And so I was just like stressed, which I think impacted my first couple of weeks there in maybe a negative way. But ultimately it ended up being like this thing where I walked around that kitchen and I just knew where everything was, and like I could get anyone any of the tea they made, and I really liked that. And towards the end I was really, really sad to go. Like, it was like I was so surprised because I struggled so hard, but I was like, wow, like I know this whole house. Like,
and you know the people, and you know, like, I think, and I want to say something. I think that I think your hard transition in the beginning was like pretty normal, because if you were at like any other job, you would have still struggled, but because it's your 9-to-5 job, you would have just struggled 9 to 5, and then you would have gone back to your house and have been fine. But because Camphill is like a live-in situation, you're struggling 24/7 because it's live-in. Like, it's not just like you don't get a meal, like you don't get to go eat in your room, like you don't. You're always with people, and so like while that does have its benefits, the transition to it is really hard. But I extended my date like 2 times to leave because I just was like, I love this place, and I think I think the thing about Camphill is they make everyone feel needed and wanted, and that's something really special, because like you don't usually get that in other places, or like it's hard to find almost.
It's really interesting too, because it's not only that they make you feel needed and like and wanted in the like verbally, because they do, but also like you actually do so much by just being there. And I didn't really realize that until towards the end. It was like right then when I realized like, oh, like just being here and making dinner and like, or like lunch, and like wiping down the counters and like making sure people go to work is so much labor. It's so much labor, and it's it's actually so important to like the function of the entire community as a whole, like making sure everyone gets to work, making sure, and because like everyone is doing stuff at their individual jobs, which then it's just very holistic. Like, and that was like really astounding to me, was seeing quite literally how we were all cogs in something that was actually like working.
Yeah.
I was so baffled by that. And there was like, and I think that one of the times I saw that the most in the bakery was, there was like this whole thing about bread, and one of the house mothers in a house, a care house, was confused, and apparently she had been confused for years about like how exactly the bread system worked. And I remember Frank being like, no, like even if that bread isn't the bread that you wanted, you keep it, it's fine, like because like if I take it back, it's just gonna sit here, like. And she was like, no, I don't want to get charged for it. And Frank was like, no, that's not how that works. Like, we already bought the flour. Like,
this is yours.
Yeah. Like, and it was really interesting actually in that moment to see someone who couldn't grasp that idea, that like it wasn't monetary, and that they weren't going to lose anything in their personal budget for the month for the house by taking that bread that they didn't ask for and then getting more bread. And I don't know why exactly that person wasn't understanding that, but for me to see that like there was like that bread, this like foundational thing that everyone was eating every single day, had already been taken into account. Like, everyone's house had like paid a certain amount for that flour, literally. And so then like that flour was made, and so everyone's bread that was getting made every day was like already budgeted in. It was just so cool to see how like everything, and then like it was just insane.
Well, because it's a tiny community. Yeah. It's its own ecosystem, and like it's its own world, and it's like it's huge. It has what, like 25 houses or something?
I think so, yeah.
So, and like in each house there's at least 10 people living in it, so it's like 250 plus like some extra handful of volunteers. Like, there's a lot of people, but it's so small, and it is just such clockwork that it is yeah, and like I kind of like, I'm really happy I could live in that, because in some ways it did feel like it's just like something that I don't think like I have lived in suburbia my whole life. I'm living in a college dorm right now. Like I would have never experienced like such a tight-knit community that just works so well if I hadn't gone. And so like, I'm really happy that I went. And like, I think for other people who are interested in like either like alternative living situations or like being sustainable or like are really interested in like community practice, like I think this is a really great experience for them. And like, it's not the point of co-op. It's to just have experiences and to like learn. And so
it is, There's also something to say for just like living outside of capitalism to some extent. Like you're not really, but like you're living under it in a way in which that it's so different. Like my work, like how I felt about my work was like getting up in the morning and never feeling like I had any place to go to kind of like, I'm like introverted as heck, and so I was like okay, wow, I'm like, and that, I think that's also why I struggled so hard to like get into the groove, was because like I like to recharge, I literally have to be alone, and that wasn't happening for me. It couldn't, because of the duties I had taken on, but once I kind of like figured it out, and I ended up, you know, voicing what I needed and getting my time and such, like working, like my relationship to work changed vastly. Like I loved going to the bakery, and I loved that I wasn't getting paid, because all my needs were being met still with the stipends. Like, and I remember like I had bought shampoo once with my stipend, and like my house mother was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, because they give you a budget to go, and I remember being astounded, because I remember I had packed enough, because like I need it for 3 months because I don't want to spend any money, so I had enough for 3 months, and I think I ran out of, it was either like floss or toothpaste, and I remember like, oh crap, I have to drive into town, and everyone's like, no, you have like a credited amount to your house, and I don't know.
It was baffling to me to know that like I had my needs were already accounted for, and that like I had been thought of in advance, and that what it came down to was, it wasn't just about me. It was that like every person in the community had a certain amount of money that was allotted to them already for their needs. And I remember just being like blown away by that, and like I didn't need anything. Like I didn't want to go and like buy anything. Like when I would go into town and go do things in Hudson, like I literally did, like I was like, I don't want to go and like shop, like I just want to go look at things. That was the thing. Like I remember like, even so, like I was there from like, it was kind of like a summer period to a winter period, and I didn't think I was staying for the winter, so I didn't have that many winter coats, and I literally like, they brought me up to an attic, and they were like, choose some coats and some pants out. And I just was like astounded. Like it wasn't just the fact that they had a free store. It was the fact that they were like, oh no, we knew that you would need this. And like, if you can't find anything, like we'll take you to town, and like, we will make sure that you are like properly warm. And like they got me gloves, because that was the thing, I hadn't brought gloves, and I was always complaining about how cold my hands were. And they went, like my house mom went and just like, oh yeah, I saw these gloves at the co-op, and she bought me gloves. And it just was like, it was just things like that were just like really meaningful, because it is a community. And I think part of that too is because you're living with villagers who are folks that like are relying on you for a lot of their needs. And so there's already this like additional like level of awareness of like everyone's trying to take care of each other in whatever way they can. And so I think that's like just in a completely different system to live in than the one we are in now. Absolutely, because like the volunteers are being taken care of just as much as the villagers. Like quite literally, in their material needs at least, not to mention emotional. Like I was that's also one of the biggest shockers, was just like the amount of like community care was just like insane. Like people just caring for each other. People would ask me how I was doing all the time, and they really meant it, like, which is like, I feel like I get asked that all the time, and I'm like, fine, like, because I'm not about to unload on someone, but like I would get asked, and I could tell, like, especially during like my my mentor meeting, it was a good experience. Like once I got into it, especially in regards to like living in an intentional community, and like the type of community care that they practiced was so like, it was so just like in an abundance, and it actually was like, it affected everyone, and in a really positive way. And I just think I just think it like honestly bettered me, like being able to experience that.
I definitely think
At least once.
I know, I'm like, I will be going back to co-op at some, or going back to Camphill at some point.
Yeah. Like, and I don't know, I learned things that I definitely didn't know how to do, especially on the farm when I volunteered a couple times. Like, that was just so exciting, to get to actually like learn how to do these things that I really wouldn't, like, cause unless I was gonna go live on a farm, like I wouldn't learn that.
Yogurt? Like, come on, I'm vegan. I literally, like, why would I want to learn how to make yogurt? Like
it's cultures are so interesting. Like, fermenting is so cool. Like, yeah, we made kombucha in the bakery. Like, it was just like, it was just learning things left and right. And I think that although it was not necessarily related to my academics, it was like the best co-op I could have done for the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
And it was so isolated. It was just like, we were just there, like, hanging out.
Yeah. Well, I think this has been a really good talk. I really appreciate like you sharing, because I think I also echoed a lot of the sentiments, and we also went at different times.
Yeah.
So it is interesting to hear kind of our different perspectives. So yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah.